Hello and welcome back to my renovation vlog. This is week 20, May 27th, Monday, and I have some crazy updates to share with you today. It's been 3 weeks since my last video because it's just been too difficult to make videos, being in the house, living in the basement, and here I am outside to get a little bit of natural light on this very, very dark day. So here I am. Let me tell you about what I'm going to share today. I'm going to tell you about the not one, not two, but three major mistakes from my architect that have been uncovered in the past 3 weeks and how we've been dealing with them. What a story. So be excited about that. I'm going to start by telling you just a bit of an overall update on the Reno and how it's going, where we're at, and then I'll tell you about what's coming next. Okay, so if we haven't met yet, my name is Karen, and I'm renovating my house. So I'm doing all of the planning, all of the design, and for the first time, I'm managing the construction myself instead of hiring out a general contractor. And so in this vlog, I try to make updates every week. Sometimes that doesn't happen. It's every 2 or 3. But my purpose is to share with everybody, with you, the wins, the losses, the learnings from one very cost-conscious homeowner to another. And that's why I'm doing all of this. And it's really exciting. So let's dive in. First, I'm going to tell you about what's been happening, where we're at. So we finished all of the demolition, well, most of it. There's a few little bits of drywall that still need to come down, but most of the demo is all done, finally. Even yesterday, I was taping up vapor barrier around in the basement to try and shelter off most of our living area in the basement, because of course we're living in the basement during all of this construction where we're doing the main floor and the top floor. And so there I am being, my best version of Dexter and taping off and plastic wrap all around the house. So that was really fun. But most of the demo is done now, which is really exciting. We filled 2 massive bins. We're talking about those 40-yard bins that are, way taller than me, something like, they're 10 or 12 feet tall, huge bins that filled the driveway. We filled 2 of them almost to the brim. So we got rid of a lot of stuff. We've had plumbers in, we've had electricians in, we've had HVAC in over the past 3 weeks to give quotes and just look at things and get an idea, because they really needed to see everything once all of the walls and ceilings were down to really understand where they could run stuff and what the implications are. So we've had that going on. And it's funny, just a little story, like the HVAC guys have all been great, really solution oriented and picturing it in their mind and say, okay, we're going to run along here and we'll go up here, and well, how are you going to do this? And I'm explaining about where we're going to fur out walls and make bulkheads. And so, the 2 of us have been able to put our brains together and say, okay, this is the vision, and we're coming together on because I've already planned all this stuff myself, but it's a matter of getting them on board and saying, is this actually going to work? Because I'm not an expert in any of these things, but I have mapped it out. And this is one of the things that I share inside Renovation Planning Academy, is how to map out all these components so that you can at least get 90% of the way there, and they just take it the other 10, right? And make sure everything is fine. So HVAC was really good. The electrician we're using is a friend of a friend, and so we met up with him, and he came to the house tour, and he's phenomenal. So we're really excited to work with him on this and his team on the electrical stuff. He came with samples, and we were talking about different types of pot lights and everything. So that's been really, really fun. So I'm looking forward to him. And then in terms of plumbers, we had some plumbers in this week, and so funny, just the way the different. And I'm not saying this about all plumbers, but just these particular guys, just the personalities of them. He comes in, his first question is, of course, okay, who's your contractor? I said, well, I am. And he's like, oh, right? I'm like, oh, God, it's going to be one of those conversations. You, useless homeowner, you, a woman, what are you going to know? But I'm prepared for this, and I'm used to it already. So his next question is, and are you going to get it inspected? Like, yes, everything is getting inspected. We already have the permits for plumbing. Like, we're ready to go. That this is happening, and we're doing this by the books. And it's so funny because I don't understand why people don't get it inspected. I just don't understand. This is another thing I talk about inside the program. Like, the inspectors are there. Their main purpose is to make sure that you're doing things right. Right? I mean, we've been very lucky in this house in that we, when we did the demo, we didn't find anything too crazy. We certainly found a few electrical issues that would not pass code if they were done properly. And we found, that there were some load-bearing walls where the actual joists are cut out with huge holes so that they could run HVAC and stuff, which, you wonder how it's even holding up the house. I mean, literally the load-bearing wall is running in between 2 joists so all that's holding it up in parts is a little piece of plywood, the 3/4 inch plywood. Like, how did people think this was okay? But it's because they didn't get it inspected, right? And so getting things inspected is really smart to do, okay? They're not out to get you. They're just there to enforce that you're doing things right. Right? And people don't do it because, most homeowners, they don't bother to learn anything about the building code themselves, right? They don't bother to learn even the basics, and I teach the basics inside of RPA because I think it's so important for homeowners to know. And so, but most homeowners don't know a thing. They just hire contractors without really understanding anything. They don't test that the contractors actually know the building code, because how can you prove that, right? I mean, in certain places you need an actual license to be a contractor, but not everywhere, certainly not here. Anybody can call themselves a contractor and come into your home and do stuff. And so if they do something wrong just to get the job done, and because you hide it behind the walls and the homeowners don't know any differently, this is why houses are built so poorly. And not just the original construction, but when people have done year after year of renos, over 100-year span, and it's all shoddy work and it's all done improperly. This is why the the plumber looked at everything and said, oh no, oh my God, like this is a show, right? Because it's a disaster, because people have come in the 50 years since the house has been built, and they've just made all these mistakes, right? Because there's probably never been an inspection. And so it's all done wrong. And so we're doing things the right way. And so we've had to rip everything out, and we're going to start from scratch. But it's, and yes, it's a little bit more expensive probably, but then at least you can sleep at night knowing that you're doing things the right way. Right? So I think there's a lot of peace of mind in that, and just you're not going to have insurance claims, right? This is the other thing you have to think about, is that if you get dodgy work done and you get nails going through pipes in the wrong places and stuff, and those are slow leaks that you don't notice over the years, 6 years later, finally it comes obvious from some way or another, and you've had 6 years of leaking and mold and all this stuff in your house. That's not what you want. So just do things right. Get them inspected. Don't make mistakes. Like, it's your home, it's your biggest asset, it's where you live and spend all this time, it's your safety, it's your health, like, it's really important. So anyway, that's I'll stop talking about that now, but yes, plumber man, we're getting it inspected, so you need to do a good job. Anyway, so that's where we're at right now. Today is a very exciting day also, because we just started the structural work. So the structural guys showed up at 7 a.m. right on time. I've been so impressed with this company so far. Really, really, really impressed. They've been wonderful. Communication's been excellent, and they're nice guys, and they're here and they're doing great work. So they've started taking down the walls, which is amazing. They've reinforced all the walls with temporary beams already, like this morning, in the few hours since they've been here, taken down all the existing load-bearing walls. And so it looks amazing already. It's so open. I can't go up there right now because they're doing some stuff, but I'll take some pictures and include them for maybe I'll get them on the blog post where this video lives on my website. So I'll do that. But they're doing a stand-up job. And so that's where we're at. Structural is starting. They're going to be here for about, I don't know, between 10 and 15 days in total. So, and then we'll get that inspection done, because we want this to be done right and make sure, and I want approvals and I want to know. So that's where we're at. That's what we've been up to the past 3 weeks, getting everybody in, all of the different trades, and then getting ready for finishing up demo and prepping the house and all that kind of stuff. It's funny. It's one of those things that I've been working really hard and talking to a lot of people and coordinating things, nothing to really show for it, but it's a lot of management work that's going on in the background. So now that being said, I want to share the 3 mistakes from the architects, because these are just major things that if there's one thing that you take away from this whole video this week, it's that these are mistakes that you can avoid if you follow this advice. Okay, so let me tell you about it. First of all, I'm gonna share my screen here as well. I gotta pause. I'm gonna have to edit this video to go and find the drawings. Okay, so here's my screen. Ignore all these lines. This is where I'm trying to line up HVAC and make sure it's in the exact right positions. But anyway, so here you can see this was the original floor plan, right? So you can see these are load-bearing walls that are all coming out. This is one beam, and this is going to be another beam across here. So one thing I didn't notice in the drawings is, part of the conversation had been HVAC, what do I want to keep? And right here at the bottom of both, you can see this little bump out here. So this is HVAC supply up into the primary bedroom that's at the front. So two pipes go up, and then they go one in each direction. And that's what supplies the HVAC to these 2 rooms. the ducts. So I said I wanted to try and keep those ducts there. So but that was sort of in passing and just a general thing because they're not really moving. So anyway, so the architect, so instead of replacing the wall here with the beam here in the same spot where it is, she decided that if this HVAC is going to stay and there's not enough room for this beam, then she'll just put the beam over here. Right, so it basically runs up here instead of over here. But the impact of that is that all the joists that run this way horizontally across on this side of the wall, if she puts the new beam here, none of these joists, these joists that are in the ceiling above the main floor that are holding up the second floor, none of those joists will reach the new beam location. So what she would have us do is basically replace or sister up all these existing beams joists with new ones, rather than just say, the stack has to move. These couple of pieces of tin that are super easy to reroute, those have to move over 6 inches or 8 inches or whatever. So instead of just doing that, the easiest job, she decided, what I think makes more sense is redoing all of these ceiling joists that are going to cost way more in actual materials and labor, because they have to replace all of these joists. I mean, I don't even know how many there are. 30, 25, something like it's crazy. Anyway, so that was the first thing. And I said, well, why would you do it there? And I explained to her, and she said, oh yeah, it probably makes a lot more sense to just leave it there. Of course it does, but there's no thought there. And at no point did they ask me about that and say, hey, do you realize that this is the impact? I caught it by fluke almost. I was looking at it and I really went in and I was like, oh, wait a second. Why? I looked at the actual dimensions and I said, that is not in the right place. And I had to go back and say, hey, why'd you do it this way? This does not make any sense. So that's something you have to be, lesson on this one, you have to be hyper aware of what it is that they are drawing for you, because even when you spec it out, when you give them the drawings, which I did, and I put the beam where it should have gone, they just change it, right? And they just, it's hard to tell unless you are really, really, really looking at your plans that they give you. So you have to inspect everything you get back from the architect. And so that brings me into number 2, the second mistake. So once we did the demo, we uncovered that, see, upstairs here in our primary bedroom, we thought that the joists were running this way, horizontally in the ceiling, because this load-bearing wall goes basically all the way to here, and then we thought that could have been just that we wouldn't need a beam there, all the joists would be running this way. That's what would make sense. But of course, once we got the ceiling down, we discovered that actually the joists are running this way. And what that meant is that, let me find, do I have my, oh yeah, so here we go. So this is the existing drawing from upstairs. And so once we discovered that the joists are not running horizontally, they're running this way, back to front, we discovered that meant this then is a load-bearing wall. And this closet, the front of the closet, is actually also load-bearing structure. And I could tell that based on where the joists were running, but also I looked down on the main floor and I could see underneath here, they doubled up the joists, the ceiling joists on the main floor, which is the floor joist holding up this. And there was a doubled up stud right here underneath that to hold up the extra weight that's bearing down basically here, because it's a point load. So that's going down through the middle of the wall. And the wall's there, so we never noticed that when the drywall was up, but we can tell all this once the drywall came down. So I had to go back to the architect and say, hey, so this is not what we expected, which is fine. That happens, right? That's why changes happen on the fly. We expect these things to be, that's okay. I should have looked at the and made a better hypothesis, but I didn't double check. So that's my mistake, and I totally own that. But also it's not a crazy change to make. So it meant, so I went back to her and I said, hey, we have to make this change. And this is before I pointed out the fact that the beam on the main floor was running in the wrong spot. So I went back to her and I said, hey, this is a problem. What are we going to do? What's the solution here? Because I don't want this wall here. This one I'm fine to keep because it's going to be the edge of the bathroom anyway. But this one, I said, I don't want to keep this closet wall set up here as it is. So I want to get rid of this. So what are we going to do? So she goes to the structural engineer, comes back and says, oh, we need to replace this with three ply LVL beams that span from here all the way here to this exterior wall. A massive, massive beam that would then need to probably be installed by making a hole in the roof to get the beam in, or to get it to fit, it would need to kind of, you put one end through and then the other end through, and you make it meet. So we need to cut at least one hole in the roof, 3 massive beams, and then of course, and at the time she had recommended taking this wall out. So she's like, oh, and you'll just redo the joists that are running here to tie into this new beam at the back here, because of course they wouldn't stretch that far because they only went here. So I was like, this is a hugely over-engineered solution. We do not need this just to replace these tiny little 3 pieces of wall. This does not make any sense. Why is this so over-engineered? So I had to go back and say, no, this is way bigger than our scope. We're trying not to touch the ceiling in the second floor because the insulation in the attic is in great shape. The drywall is in great shape. We do not want to go up there and be rebuilding the entire structure just for this. I said, go back. This does not make sense. Like, why can't we just have, a couple of 2x8s sitting here resting on, on this wall, which is still there, and going down and then resting on the steel beam? And then that's when I pointed out, I said, by the way, why do you have the steel beam over here when it should be here? And that way it can take the weight. And then that was when she came back and said, oh yeah, and that's why I moved it, because of blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Why don't you just leave it there? And then we confirmed that 2x8s will be enough to go across here, and that will solve the problem. So I don't need 3 LVLs to go through and make roofs, and I don't need to change any of the joists. I just need a couple of 2x8s to be a little header across here, tie into this wall that will then, all the weight, the load will be resting on the steel beam, which is more than capable. It's massive of handling that much weight because it's just a small amount of weight. Anyway, so that was mistake number 2, where it's just, the automatic reaction is this hugely over-engineered solution. And so the lesson here is that you can push back. As a homeowner, you can push back and you can say, no, this is not the right way to do it. Let's figure out a better solution. That is totally within your capabilities. So number 3 just came to light this morning. So this is hot off the press, this update. So the structural guys, as I said, showed up here at 7 a.m. and, we said hello and everything. And they pointed out, so little back story here. So, I've been talking to these guys for a long time and planning it out. And so I've sent them, the various versions of the plans from the architect that have been approved by the structural engineer, the permits from the city. Anyway, so we made a bunch of changes. And so I got the new plans resubmitted to the city because I wanted to make sure that there were no delays on site once we were waiting for the inspector to approve it. Because the way it works is that, I guess in some cases, if you make a few changes on site, the inspector will come and they can usually make a judgment call to say either, yes, this is fine, or hey, no, I want the city to actually go and approve the engineer's drawings just to make sure that they pass. And if that happens, then you have to resubmit the actual paperwork. It can take, a delay, a long time. It can be a long time, which you don't want, right? And that's why you get everything approved before you start construction, because you don't want that, it's easier to have that delay while you're waiting for the guys to start anyway, versus while the guys are sitting there and you're waiting 3, 4, it could be even more weeks. Right here, it's a pretty quick turnaround, but I did not want to have a delay mid-construction when I could mitigate that by starting earlier. So the backstory there is that I got the new plans created and resubmitted to the city, and of course the architects were taking care of that. So the architect sent me the revised drawings. Everything was perfect. I approved them, and she said, great, I'm going to send these to the city for approval. So that was fine. So I took those plans that I got approved from her, that I had approved, and I sent those to my structural guys. And then that was fine. So, and then I got the permit approval just last week. So I forwarded those documents over to them at the end of last week and said, okay, so this is what it was. And I expected them to be the same, as you would, because what I approved is what I expected them to send. That's what they said they would send. So when they showed up this morning, he says, hey, so this beam that we've already ordered that is supposed to be delivered tomorrow is not the same size as what's in the permit docs. So did you send me the right plans? And I thought, oh my God, I had, it was a big panic. I had to look back through all of my notes and through all of my emails and stuff, and I found the plans that I sent, and they were the right plans. And I looked through my emails, and I did not have another update from the architect to say, hey, this has changed for any reason. So as far as I was concerned, she should have sent to the city the plans that I approved. so then I uncovered the fact. I had to call her up and we had to chat, and it turns out that she made a last minute change, or the structural engineer made a last minute change, and so that she made the update on the plans that she sent to the city for approval, but she didn't tell me. She didn't tell me in a month's time, from almost a month's time, because I got the last plans from her on April 30th, and now it is May 27th. In that entire time, she never thought, hey, I should actually forward you the plans. Like, and I don't even get copied on the submission to the city. So it was only when they came back, and I didn't even notice, because I mean, why would I? And it was the structural guy who was here, and he said, I ordered this beam. Like, what are we gonna do now? So I don't even have an answer. I got the answer I got from the architect when we spoke this morning is that if we're going to use the existing, the beam that's already being delivered tomorrow, that's already been ordered, that costs $1,200, we can either reinforce that or we have to upgrade it to a bigger beam, in which case we're already out the money because it's already been bought and paid for. And so I don't have a solution to that yet. The structural guy will be back soon from dropping something off, and we're going to have to figure out a solution. So I'm really upset about that because it's not my fault and it's not his fault, and yet the architect there's no way they're going to say, well, we'll pay for it, right? So this is the kind of thing that happens all the time, and it's frustrating, and I don't even have a solution for what to do, except that you've just got to be on top of people and pay attention to details. And if there's anything that you ever think of flagging or communicating or asking about, you have to speak up and say it, because I at the end of the day, I have to blame myself, because there's no one else to blame. Yes, she should have emailed me the updated plans. Sorry, they're building up there. If you hear the noise, maybe the mics won't pick it up, but the machinery has started again. And anyway, but at the end of the day, I have no one to blame but myself, because I should have been, on her saying, is this beam the right beam? Is this the right size? Is this going to tie in together? Are there any other issues? Has every little detail been checked off? What else do you do? So, if this helps you avoid the same issue, I hope it does. And I'll keep you posted on the updates. But for now, I don't have any solutions for this one, and I'm really upset. Anyway. So that is so loud now. So that is my update for today. Over the next couple of weeks, so the structural guys are here for 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how long everything takes them, and when, how quickly the inspector will come to do the approvals and everything. So we'll go through that process, and that's very exciting. And then next up will be the framers, and they don't have a ton to do because we're taking down walls, not putting them back up, but they do have a few little tasks to take care of. And then once we've got the framing done, we can do the HVAC, and then the plumbing, and then the electrical, in that order, very specifically. Go from biggest to smallest, and so that's why we're doing it that way. And then we can start putting the house back together. So I still have a ton of work on my plate to try and figure out lots of final details. So I will have lots of juicy updates for you next week, probably some more visuals too, because I'm just finishing off some plans for the various trades based on our conversations, what I've learned. I have some tweaks to make to the plans, and then I realized I haven't shared those with you guys, so I'm going to do that hopefully next week or the week after, depending on how things go and where I can actually film video. So thanks so much for sticking around. I hope you learned from my mistakes and from these lessons. You have to be in control of your own project. You have to look at the details. You have to pay attention to what people are doing and get things inspected. It's your home. You have to own this process. Nobody else will look after things for you. Even these trusted professionals, like, you think you're not going to get anyone better than an architect looking after your build, and that's 3 mistakes. 3 mistakes. And that's not even counting the ones that I've already talked about in previous weeks, because I have talked about other things that they've done wrong that I've had to catch and fix. So, you've got to take it on yourself, because no one else is going to do a good job. No one else is going to do a better job than you could do for your own home. Okay? And I'm not saying you have to do everything yourselves. I'm not doing structural work. Those guys are, because they're the pros at that. But the planning, the organizing, that's on me. And even seasoned people make the odd mistake, but once you have a program to follow or a framework and stuff like that, something like Renovation Planning Academy, it makes it a hell of a lot easier, okay? So do your planning, take control, and I will see you next week.